Hey everybody, Ben here for the Bonehead podcast, and welcome to Blood Bowl Dream Team's Halflings. So we're having a look at every team available in Blood Bowl 2020, from the rulebook, the Teams of Legend PDF, the Spike magazines, and the expanded NAF team, or just one team now, the Slan team. And we're kind of putting together what I think are optimal builds, or how your team can look during the season of a league, and essentially into more than one season. So what we're doing is we're having a look at these teams to kind of gauge what skills, what players you're likely to have. About 1.25, so 1.25 million, 1.5 million, and 1.75 million. Obviously, how you build your team, how you buy your team, and how you skill your team is very much down to you. What I'm doing here is just putting together a guide of what I would expect to be playing with or playing against at those points with a team. And today we are delving into a very interesting one, a very unusual team when it comes to running in the league, the Halfling team. Now when it comes to doing these videos, what we normally do is we take a look at 1.25, 1.5 and 1.75. But the Halfling team is a very interesting team. It doesn't really operate like other teams in League. Most teams, you develop all your players and your players become your team. When you are running Halflings, whether it's a tournament or in League, try and think of it like the team is, and I'm going to use some Halfling terminology here, the team is the bread. When it comes to running Halflings, it's all about the star players. So you've got the Halfling team is the bread, and then you've got the filling, which is a star. Now, the reason for that is because the Halfling team itself is so cheap. The Halflings are 30k. There's a couple which are a bit more expensive, the Catcher and the Hefty, but they're not optimal straight out of the box. And you can only take 2 trees, and at 120k, that's not massively expensive. So Halflings are a real feat of team value management, because you are going to be relying very heavily on star players as the season goes along. Now, you can absolutely fill your roster with Halflings, focus on just running Halflings and not using the stars. I don't think that's how most Halfling teams do it. However, it's a very cool thing to do, and you are going to want to develop your Halflings as the season goes on. So what I've got here is the 1000 build. This is 1 million. This is how a Halfling team can look at the start. And the reason for that is you want to keep your team value low so you get the maximum amount of inducements. There are 2 elements when it comes to the Halfling team when it comes to inducements. One is the Master Chef. You are going to need this Master Chef. It is the pinnacle of what Halflings do. It costs 300k for most teams. For Halflings, it's 100k. Your rerolls are 60k. So basically, what you do is you make sure that you buy 1 reroll, and then you rob the opponent of all of theirs. And it's such a key part of what the Halflings do. So this roster here, with 2 Treeman and 9 Halfling hopefuls, comes to 11 players. We've got 1 reroll here, and then, let me get rid of this very, very quickly. We've got 1 reroll, and that will leave you a bunch of money, and I mean a bunch of money, to take star players. So this roster here, with 9 hopefuls, 2 Treeman, 1 reroll, comes to 570,000. You are going to be left with 430 in your treasury, but more than that, what's happening here is you're going to go into every game with around about 350 to 400 amount of inducements. So that's going to be star players. That's going to be the Master Chef. So what we'll do now is we'll have a look at the menu. So, you know, you've got your Halfling team, you've got your bread, now you get to choose your filling. This is basically Blood Bowl Subway. And that has gone very ugly. I'm not sure why that's formatted like that, but hey, it doesn't really matter. So this is your menu. So you come into the Halfling team, you choose your Halfling team physical, you choose your Treeman, okay? That's basically choosing the type of bread that you want. Then the good bit is the filling. So you've got that Master Chef. All right, that's your sauce. That is your salad. That's what goes in it to make it just that little bit extra special. And then you've got this massive menu of stars. Now, I've tried to kind of organize them. These are the most likely to be used stars. There's some more star players there as well, but these are the ones that are most likely to be used, and for most good reasons, basically. Starting at the top there, 380k. Morg has gone up after the last FAQ, gone up by 40k. Morg and Therg at 380. If you can ever run Morg and Therg, you've genuinely got to consider what else you want to be doing. Okay, that 380 is massive, but he is absolutely dominant. Mighty Blow +2, no nega traits, throws a dude better than anybody else. Absolutely phenomenal. Deep Brute at 100k less is where you want to be going. So that first match, you've got 570, so you've got about 400 and change in your inducement kitty. You'll be able to take one of the two there. You'll be able to take Deep Root or Griff, essentially. Now, Deep Root's going to give you that third Treeman. He's also got Mighty Blow +2. Slow movement is going to be great for getting that extra bash, but Griff does a superb job of winning the game by himself. So it's really up to you on what you want to do with that Halfling battle. Halflings with Griff is actually a really fun roster. But the cool thing is with your Halfling team here, is unless you're using the expanded rules where you can roster star players, you can take Griff one week. Next week you can take Deep Root, and you can mix it up and kind of match it to your opponent. If you're going against a bashy team, you can take Deep Root and just absolutely be stronger than them. If you're going against a dash team and you want to be able to score and have a really good backfield safety, you can take Griff. You can also take Grack and Crumbleberry to give you an extra opportunity. So you've got Throw teammate and you've got Kick teammate, and Grack and Crumbleberry is underutilized in the Halfling world, but does give you access to 2 players, and one of them has sure hands, which is actually quite useful when it comes to your team, because your team not going to have a lot of sure hands. So other secondary kind of star players, Mighty Zerg is a great strength 5 piece. Carla von Kiel is ultimately what you want to be considering your second star player. If you can't afford one of your top tier ones, then Carla von Kiel is probably the best. Strength 4, Blodge just does everything you want them to do. Rumbelow Sheepskin is an excellent way to get strength 4 blitzing tackle. Strength 3 most of the time. It does have that extra bit. Can be a very good blitzer for your team at a pretty low price of 170k. And Helmet Wolf is always really good to be able to mop up and just foul. Now this is just some of the options. 150k will get you a wizard. Pick up a death zone. There's a ton of stuff in there. You could even take a giant at 350k. But ultimately what you're going to be doing is padding your team as low as possible from a team value point of view, so you can take as much of this good stuff as possible. So with that in mind, we'll have a look and see how the team develops over time. So when your league gets to about 1250, and this is where we're going to be using as a benchmark here, because your team not going to get that high. What we're doing here is gauging it as to where the average team value of your league is. So 1250 in a league is probably what, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 games in there. Now when it comes to your team, they don't level up all that quickly. Now what we have been able to do is bin off a couple of halflings and spend some cash to pick up a hefty and a catcher. Now you don't necessarily want to start out that with both of those guys, because that does cost you 40k, but it really is going to be down to you, and this is the message of this video here, is understand where the team value of the league is and buy things appropriately. You want to keep this integer here as large as you want it to be. So if we look at that 1000 build, that 1 million starting roster, you can take halflings and you can take catchers and hefties, but it's going to mean that your cash window is lower. And in this edition, even if you start out with 1 million builds, there's going to be a lot of teams that only start out at 950 because they're spending that money in dedicated fans. So be aware that you're going to come up against some teams with low values. Now that's why that smorgasbord, that menu of stars is great, because if you've got 300, you can take Griff or Deep Root. If you've only got 200, you can probably take Carla or Rumbelow. You can kind of flex your positioning there. Now with here, Treeman are going to be very slow to level up, and I guess we've got to start here. The correct thing to do with a Treeman is to save their SPP forever. Technically, I think the right thing to do is to save up 18 SPP and get movement 3, and then save up 14 SPP, 16 SPP, and take block. When it comes to tabletop, that is going to be about, I don't know, a year, okay? And that is a very long time. What's going to happen is you're going to get a couple of casualties on a Treeman, maybe he swings MVP, and you're going to end up with 6 SPP, and you're going to be thinking, do I want to wait another 6 SPP to give him block? Do I want to wait another 12 SPP to give him extra movement? When it comes to tabletop, it's very likely that you're going to go, I just want to skill on him right now. And in which case, Guard and Brawler would be 2 of the ones I would recommend. There are a bunch of great skills, and actually Pile Driver is one to genuinely consider with Treeman, because once they're rooted, you can use Pile Driver to put your Treeman prone, which actually does free you up. from Take Root. However, I recommend Guard. Guard is an excellent skill. If you've got a Guard Treeman, it means you've got Strength 3 Halflings next door to them. If you're running a star player, it gives that benefit. And when you come to start stomping on dudes, Guard is going to give you an extra +1 for the foul too. So Guard on your Treeman is going to be really key. Now, the Catcher, the Hefty, as you buy them and add them, the Catcher is a great piece. It's got catch, so it's ready to receive that ball for the throw teammate, for the just general handoff stuff. The best level up I've found on a Catcher, there's a bunch of great ones. Agility's really good. Sure Feet though, you've already got Sprint. One level up, this Catcher gets a couple of touchdowns. You take Sure Feet, this guy is now essentially movement 9. And that's as good as he's going to get. You can save up and take block if you want to go the long route, but again, you're looking at 12 SPP for that, and that's a long way to go for Halflings. Now the Hefty, what we're going to do is we're going to build this team to maximize the funnest aspect of the game, which is throwing teammates. So that Catcher, with catch, with sprint, with sure feet, is going to be your primary receiver for the throw. The Hefty, being able to take on the ball at 6 SPP, so a couple of touchdowns, and the Hefty's there, that's going to make him movement 8 when you receive the ball. So that gives you even better coverage in the backfield. Now you can take leader on the Hefty instead and kind of fudge another reroll into your roster. You can take nothing. The Hefty is an interesting player. You can't throw him and it is a vulnerability. But being able to take on the ball is going to speed up your game. This is probably the best thing I can think of to do with these players. Now the rest of your hopefuls are there to just put garbage skills on if you even want to. Remember, our goal here is to keep this number as big as possible so we can take the star players and the inducements that we want, okay? We don't want too much bread. We want to leave room for filling. Now, jump up on one dude though, I cannot recommend enough. First Halfling hopeful that gets to 6 SPP, chuck jump up on them, and they become your primary paratrooper. And the goal there is on defense, you chuck him into the backfield. Whether he lands, whether he doesn't land, he's going to be able to pop up 5 squares in movement, use that 3+ stunty dodge ability to just get on the ball. As in get on the ball carrier to start harassing and haranguing the backfield. If that Halfling forces your opponent to basically lose half a turn, a whole turn to defend the ball carrier in the backfield, it's going to be a massive benefit to you. Now the rest of the other Halflings, if you get to 6 SPP, take a Random General. There are some great skills for Halflings. Random General keeps that TV down as well, because 20k for a double skill is excellent. Block, Wrestle, Dauntless, Strip Ball, Dirty Player, Sure Hands. There are a ton of useful skills. I think the only one that's not great is Shadowing. And what you can do is you can fire them. Now, when it comes to Halflings, they're not going to live massively long anyway. So if you've got a dude that you've got like a skill and actually you don't want him to be there, you can treat him bad. And in a few games, he's not going to be there anymore anyway. This should leave you in a 1250 matchup with the Master Chef, a team of stuff, and 400k-ish for star players. Now what that means is you will probably be able to take Griff. You will probably be able to take, you could even fit in there a great combination of Carla and Rumbelow Sheepskin, which gives you 2 star players. You could take Carla and a Wizard. The star player menu is massive and you can tailor it to your opponent a little bit as well, but Carla, Griff, Morg, Deep Brew are generally speaking never bad choices. And let's ramp it up to your league being at 1.5 million now. We are going to assume that both your Treeman have leveled up, and everything we just said about Treeman is true. Technically you want them to be movement 3 and have block, but I think I'd probably be retired by the time that happens with Treeman, because they're not scoring touchdowns. They're basically scoring a couple of casualties every other week or something. So actually there's an opportunity for them to grow up. You want to get them to have guard because it's just going to enable the other team without you having to move that tree. After you've got guard, you can potentially take brawler just to make those hits count better. You can take grab to keep your targets close to the Treeman. That's another really good skill for trees. Or you can just wait forever with those SPPs. Now the catchers, we've picked up a second catcher. They are really good. They are expensive at 50k, but they are still really good at what they do. Having that sprint and catch just gives you an extra kind of extra bit of safety net when it comes to scoring touchdowns. Now the first catcher, let's assume they've managed to survive long enough to get another 3 touchdowns. Jump up. What we want to do with these guys is use them as our 1-turn touchdown machines. That sure feet's going to mean that you can run, and that once you get sure feet on those dudes, they've got stunty dodge, so they're 3++ing everywhere. You only need to move up what, 4 squares before you were within scoring distance of a 9 square super run with a catcher. Your opponent's going to be like, Halflings, I'm going to be prepared for this throw teammate shenanigans, and you must be, and you as a Halfling player must be prepared to pull off those shenanigans. But actually, if you can form a Halfling cage 4 squares into the other side of the field, one of those catchers can just run it straight in. So don't forget that. 9 squares is a long way. If you've played against Snotlings, you'll know that the little stilties, again, 9 squares is a long way. The Hefty still got on the ball. Everything we just said about the hopefuls is really, really, really true. But one thing that if you gotta shoot for, if you can, is get a dirty player hopeful. Guard on the Treeman, they knock a dude down. If they've got grab, they can position them to make it, make sure that stays in a really good place. You've got sneaky git on a normal access for these skills, but if you can save up and take dirty player and a halfling, +1 for the dirty player, +1 for one of the guard trees, that's +2 to your armor roll. That's a mighty blow, +2 piece essentially, in the form of a pretty cheap halfling. Now, saving up and taking a double skill is going to be very expensive, so you've got to watch your team value as ever with the halflings. But I mean, the dirty player halfling hopeful is like the crusty bit at the top of a flute, okay, at the top of a baguette. It's filling, it's not optimal, but it's very good fun. Otherwise, what you can do is, if you've got some other halfling hopefuls, for 10k you can take random agility skills. It's not a priority, and again, team value management has to be key here, but sidestep, defensive, jump up, catch, diving, tackle, they're great. It's great. Your halflings are going to be short-lived, and actually, if you've got the opportunity to take a couple of random skill ups with some halflings and try out some stuff, for the case of what, 20, 30k, if you've got 3 of them that are living long enough, not going to be too bad. Early on in a league, wouldn't hurry it. Definitely don't rush it. But later on, as your league's team value gets to 1.5 or further on, you can take a couple of random skills because you're still going to be padded out. In this situation here, we've got all that. We've only got 1 reroll. We've got the Master Chef. You can pick up another reroll. You will have plenty of money to do it. But again, team value management, we're looking at about 500,000 in stars now. That's Griff and Carla. That's tournament tier level. That's Morg and a wizard. Okay, it's big money, and we're not going to go any further than this because actually your halfling team is not going to develop much further than this. You might get a couple more skills on your Treeman over time. They might save up and be able to take that block skill over time. I don't recommend taking random generals. Can you imagine a sure hands tree or a shadowing tree? It's a bad place to be, but you will have enough cash to bin them off and recruit them again. Optimally, though, you're going to end up with a couple of catchers with some cool skills. You're going to end up with a Hefty who's going to be there to facilitate what your team wants to do. And the rest of the halflings are going to be short-lived glimmers of hope. But realistically, this team here exists to support whatever you can afford here. And it's a really cool way to run it. Now, you can definitely just tank up, put a load of skills on halflings, and it's going to be great for the lols. But if you're running halflings in League, if you want to play, they're a great opportunity to get star players on the pitch. There's so much you can do when it comes to running halflings in a league. It's all about team value management, and every now and again you'll roll something pretty special and it will be great. Anyway guys, thank you very much for watching. Please let me know what you think of halflings in League in this edition. I think the baguette is a pretty good analogy. These guys are the bread, these guys are the filling. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. We'll be back soon with more Blood Bowl content. Happy blocking. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to help support the channel even further, please like and subscribe, or come join us on our Patreon. We have early access to content. We get loads of feedback from you guys, and we try and do competitions as much as we can. Or you can get yourself some Bonehead podcast merch on our Spreadshirt site. So if you want to support a team, especially for the Bonehead Championship, you can pick up a shirt, a mug, things like that. It all helps support the channel, and we really appreciate it. Anyway, links below. Thank you very much. Happy blocking.